while the world moves into the era of data, satellite, and technology-driven governance. According to the Space in Africa annual report last year, the African space and satellite industry is now valued at 22.64 billion US dollars, with 18 African countries actively engaged and more than 500 space and technology companies operating across the continent. These are not mere speculation, these are facts. And they show that Africa has already entered the sailing ship. The question is, if Africa will continue to move forward or allow the storms of the sea pull us back to dependence to the Western world. Africa's greatest wealth lies not in its oil or gold, but in our soil, which is agriculture. Yet climate change, erratic rainfall, and land mismanagement threaten this wealth of resources. Over 60% of Africans depend directly on agriculture for livelihood. Satellites now help farmers monitor soil health, predict rainfalls, detect pests. In Kenya, the Taifa 1 satellite launched in 2023, that's about 2 years ago, provides real-time imagery for crop monitoring and land use mapping. In Nigeria, the National Space Research and Development Agency, NASDA, uses Earth observation data to help predict drought and plain irrigation. According to a report from PhysioUrge this year, satellite data helped several East African states mitigate the effects of prolonged droughts by enabling earlier planting schedules. When African governments invest in space technology, they are not sending rockets to the moon. Perhaps that is what my opponents or the audience would think. They are feeding their people more efficiently. Investment in space is therefore investment in food security. Also, let's talk about floods in Mozambique. So droughts in the Horn of Africa. Natural disasters are becoming more frequent and severe. The African Space Agency, launched officially this year, aims to coordinate satellite data to predict and manage such disasters continent-wide. Space technology allows for early warning system that saves thousands of lives. For example, satellite imagery was used during the 2022-2023 flooding in Nigeria to guide evacuation and aid delivery. According to the African Union Climate Risk Profile last year, early warning and space-based monitoring also reduce disaster-related losses by up to 40% if properly managed or funded. I want it to be on notice that it is not a luxury, but a responsibility for African governments to invest in the technology that protects their citizens. In addition, nowadays, access to the internet is access to opportunity. Yet, more than 600 million Africans remain without reliable internet access. In May last year, Reuters reported that Liquid Intelligent Technology partnered with Protesat OneWeb to expand low Earth orbit satellite coverage across Africa. This partnership promises high-speed connectivity, even in rural and remote areas where fiber cannot reach. Similarly, in March this year, MTN South Africa and Big Global conducted the first satellite voice call in Africa using a normal smartphone, demonstrating that rural communities can soon access telecom services without traditional towers. This advancement will revolutionize education, telemedicine, and even e-commerce, lifting millions out of digital darkness. By investing in space infrastructure, governments ensure that every child from the desert of Niger to the coast of Ghana can learn trade, dream, and even on equal digital footing. Moving on, the African space industry is not just a scientific venture, it is an economic frontier. According to the Space in Africa 2024 industry report last year, African governments collectively invested $465.34 million in their national space programs in 2024. The industry currently supports over 19,000 skilled jobs, spanning satellite designs, software engineering, data analytics, and even telecommunications. You can see that this has already provided employment for so many Africans. Countries such as Egypt and South Africa are developing local satellite manufacturing facilities, while startups like Space Advisory Company South Africa, the Ethiopian Space Science and Technology Institute are building regional capacity. The sector's growth rate estimated at 60% annually. outpaces that of many traditional industries in the world. Every new satellite generates a chain of economic activity, whether you like it or not, from data services to logistics that strengthens Africa's technological independence. Investment, I must say, in space is therefore not an expense, but an economic multiplier for Africans. In today's world, information is power, and too often, Africa rents that power from others, which is the Western world. During the COVID-19 pandemic, most African countries relied on foreign satellites for logistics, mapping, and health surveillance. In May this year, All African News reported that Nigeria approved the launch of 4 new satellites, including a radio satellite for border surveillance and environmental monitoring. Morocco and Egypt already use similar systems for national defense and maritime control. By owning our satellites, we control our own eyes in the sky. As another African proverb will say, he who is watched by another person's eye will never see clearly. In addition, space investment, I must say, ensures strategic autonomy and protects Africa's resources from illegal fishing to mining and deforestation through continuous monitoring. Perhaps the most inspiring development is the establishment of the African Space Agency, ASA, which has its headquarters in Egypt and officially launched in April this year. Its mandate is to coordinate continental efforts, standardize data sharing, and even foster joint missions. This mirrors what the European Space Agency did for Europe after the Second World War, turning collaborations into innovation. For Africa, a coordinated approach reduces duplication of effort and cost while deepening unity. As there is a general saying that if you want to go fast, yes, you can go alone. But if you want to go far, you can go together. That is unity. In Africa, you can do a lot more. Investing in ASA means investing in collective progress and shared pride. My very brilliant opponents will argue or want to argue that Africa has more urgent priorities like poverty, unemployment, and infrastructure. Yes, I acknowledge those realities. But however, we should not run far from the truth. The answer is not to avoid space investment. It is to integrate it. Small satellites such as CubeSat cost less than $1 million to design and launch, compared to hundreds of millions for large missions. The data derived from space program directly improves infrastructure planning, agriculture, education, and even healthcare. The number of African engineers trained in space science has grown exponentially. Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa now offer university programs in aerospace engineering. Thus, I can say that investing in space technology is not a competitor to Africa's development. However, this is a catalyst for it. Beyond immediate economic and social returns, space investment strengthens Africa's standing globally. Yes, with 67 satellites launched by African nations as of this year, the continent is moving from dependence to participation. Partnership with NASA, the European Space Agency, and China's CNSA are expanding African research assets. Moreover, as artificial intelligence and climate modeling becomes essential to governance, space data will be the foundation of policy decisions. As Nelson Mandela posited, it is always seems impossible, or it will always seem impossible until it is done. The same way it was said of independence some years or many years back, of democracy, and now we are talking about space. Yes, Africa has always risen. Distinguished judges,
Oyekachi, are you done with your arguments? Oyekachi. Okay, Angelo, you can take over, please.
Angelo, mute your mic and start your presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon,
Good
Honorable
afternoon. This is
Chairperson.
24, and your time starts now.
Okay. Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson, respected judges, accurate timekeeper, and my worthy opponents. My worthy opponents and distinguished judges, audience. I am Angela Champon, speaking on behalf of the negative side, strongly opposing the motion that African government should invest more in space exploration and technology. First, I would like to sincerely thank our host, the Adua Initiative, Mr. Kelvin, Mr. Victor, and all other industrial stakeholders, which made it possible for us to have this intellectual discourse on pressing topics such as the one before the House today. Ladies and gentlemen, my stand is simple. Africa should not prioritize investment in space exploration and technology at this stage of its development. My position is not against science or progress. It is a call for realism and relevance. Our continent, Africa, rich in potential but burdened with poverty. As a continent, we must first address our most pressing human and developmental needs before diverting our scarce resource towards the sky. Let's ask ourselves, what good is a satellite when millions do not have electricity to charge their phones? What value is a rocket launch when millions of children sit under trees to study? We must face reality. Space is a luxury, while Africa's challenges are a matter of survival. Now, there is the issue of priorities. Before one can run, one must first learn to walk. Africa today faces enormous challenges. Over 400 million Africans live in extreme poverty. Many African nations still struggle with unreliable electricity, poor healthcare systems, and inadequate education. Climate change, food insecurity, and unemployment are daily realities. In such a situation, how can we justify spending billions of dollars on launch pads and satellites? Let's take an example. Nigeria's space agency, NASDA, has launched several satellites since 2003. Yet the country still faces daily power outages, high unemployment, and low literacy rates. Did those satellites solve these problems we have at hand? The clear answer is no. Instead, that money could have built hospitals, funded agricultural innovation, or even provided clean water to rural communities. Investment should focus where it has the greatest human impact, not where it looks the most glamorous. On to my next point. The cost and capacity challenge. Space programs are extremely expensive. Building and launching even a small satellite can cost tens of millions of dollars, as my opponents acknowledge. While establishing a space agency might cost hundreds of millions more. Most African countries are already struggling with debt and budget deficits. Diverting funds to space exploration risks worsening this economic situation. Even countries with strong economies like India or China took decades of heavy investment and sacrifice before their space programs became successful. For Africa, jumping into space technology now will be like trying to build a skyscraper or the Burj Khalifa with a weak foundation. On to my next point, dependence on foreign powers. Many, even though some might argue that Africa can partner with global powers for support, such partnerships always come with strings attached. Relying on foreign nations for technology, training, and launches risks turning Africa into a dependent customer, not an independent innovator as we would like it. Instead of promoting true sovereignty, space investments would increase foreign dependence, the very problem Africa has been trying to overcome since colonial times. Let us remember the control of data and technology equals power. If our satellites, launch sites, and software are foreign owned, then our space program is not truly ours. Another harsh reality is governance. In many African countries, such as mine, Ghana, large scale government projects are often too plagued by corruption, mismanagement, or lack of transparency. Space programs involve massive budgets. For example, we'll take the US. The US has a budget of $25 billion per year just for the 2025 fiscal year. So space programs, so what is the guarantee that we would not have such investments, uh, that such investments wouldn't become political vanity projects meant to show off rather than actually serving the people who would benefit from it? When funds disappear in the name of technological progress, in quote fingers, it is the ordinary citizens who suffer. Even if a space program succeeds, who truly benefit? Space programs tend to employ a small number of highly educated professionals, as my opponent rightly noticed and acknowledged in his own presentation. But a fraction of the population, while offering no direct benefit to farmers, factory workers, or even small business owners, the normal average African. Instead of narrowing inequality, it may widen it, empowering a small elite whilst many remain behind. Instead of investing in space technology, Africa should rather invest in agricultural solutions, renewable energy to power homes, education and research to build the human capacity needed for those space programs my colleague speaks of, healthcare systems to reduce disease and improve the quality of life. Ladies and gentlemen, our argument is not against progress, it's rather about priorities with purpose. We acknowledge that space technology can bring benefits in the future, but when the foundation of our societies is strong to support it, a nation cannot feed its people and have no business feeding rockets to the sky. A continent struggling for survival cannot afford the luxury of exploration. Therefore, honorable judges and respected audience, the opposition, strongly reject the motion that Africa should invest in space technology. Only we believe that Africa's first investment must be first in its people, the people that we will need to build those space projects, and only then should our feet be firmly planted and truly be ready to take on this project my opponent speaks of. Thank you.
Okay, that was very beautiful. Thank you very much, Angelo. So now we are going to go to the next stage the debates. That's you guys. You're going to have a counter argument, and we're going to go with Francis first. Francis, are you available now?
Yes, yes, I'm available.
Okay. So now for this second
Please,
part
I
of the
want to,
argument, sorry.
I want to ask, can I just round up the last part? Just remind that.
Of course, you are going to do that. Of course, you are going to do that. So now for this next stage of your counter argument, you're going to have 7.5 minutes each. So I wish you best of luck, and please try to use your time well. Thank you.
In rounding up, I would say that distinguished judges, space exploration and technology are not luxuries in Africa. They are lifelines. Yes, they are lifelines. They safeguard our food, they secure our borders, educate our children, and even empower our economies. The African space industry's $22 billion valuation and its growth across 18 nations are not coincidences, I must say. They are evidence of progress, demanding continuation. If we abandon this trajectory, we abandon the future. Let Africa be the architect of its own success and development, not remaining in the status quo. Let our government invest wisely, boldly, and even collectively so that life on earth, our earth, will prosper. Round up with this African proverb that says, the sky is wide up for every bird to fly, and let African take flight. Thank you. However, going to my counterpoints, I want to rebut one fact that my opponent has said. He said that I admitted that investing in space technology only employ just few persons. No, that is not what it means. I'm talking about in general space where Africa benefits. It leaves Africa from poverty by bringing up employment opportunities for Africans. Yes, as I said, it has already created 19,000 jobs for African persons. It's 67 satellites, or let me say, my opponent would also want to bring up the point that Africa has always been dependent on the Western world for funding. I must say that if we really want to go out of dependence, we should do this. Yes, we know that we can gain a lot from investing in space technology. The returns are way far high. I've stated it in my argument that we have seen a $22 billion valuation, like the current industry, the current space industry now is valuated for about $22 billion. This is not coming from the Western world. It is our investment. This is what we have done. Yes, if Africa has 54 countries we have in Africa come together to invest in space technology, we would go more than this $22 billion evaluation. Yes, that is what I will say. And this will make us not dependent in the Western world again. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was very beautiful, Onyekachi. Thank you very much. So now we are going to have Angelo to move into his counter argument round. So and in this segment, you are going to have a chance to respond to the point that was raised by Francis Onyekachi, and you also share your rebuttals, and then you can strengthen your stance on the topic as we round up. Angelo, you can take over now. Angelo.
So, as my opponent put, he mentioned satellites being used for agriculture. But in response to what he said, I would say there are other satellite services such as Starlink, such as GLONASS from the Russian Space Agency. So if you do a cost to benefit analysis, investing in space exploration right now will cost us a lot rather than the benefits which will come in some decades later. And those benefits or returns that he's talking of are not even certain. They are not assured to accrue to us if we invest in these space programs. On to my next point, I would say when my opponent was speaking, you realize he's always speaking in abstract, such as valuations. He mentions valuations, projections, and other numerical statistics of that sort. So he mentioned a valuation of 82 or $22 billion. That money is not money that has been realized. It's a projection. So So it's likely that we may not even hit that figure he's speaking of. And even if we hit those figures or those numbers he speaking of, we actually realize those numbers, who does that money accrue to? It doesn't come down to us as normal people, as average Africans, as you know it. It accrues to a very narrow elite, which is involved in the space program or in the actual distribution and disbursement of funds for those space programs in the government. And again, he mentioned space exploration as a lifeline. A lifeline is supposed to be something that is actual, not something that is abstract. A lifeline is supposed to keep you alive. A lifeline that is in the future or is in some distant existence is not actually a lifeline. It's a false hope. And that is what I would say to rebut my opponent's point. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much to all our debaters. That was engaging and quite thought provoking. So now I've come to the end of this team debates. Although I noticed that participants did not use all their allotted time and you had extra few minutes, but that's perfectly fine. Shows that you were concise and straight to the point anyway. So at this stage, I'll hand things over to our judges, Glory Onon and Mr. Watangema. Please feel free to share your feedback, comments, or any observations that you would like to make before we close. Miss Glory, you can go first.
So sorry for the interruption, please. Uh, I am suggesting if they still have time, if any of them want to strengthen their position, they can do so. Kachi, if you have anything to strengthen your position, because your competitor, he almost, you know, crippled most of your arguments. Maybe you have a sorry butter in that regard to respond to him. You can do
Yeah,
that.
you still have time. You can do that. You still have time.
Okay, thank you very much. I think my opponent is getting it on the wrong side. These are not projections. These are what already happened. Like the report from the African Partnership with MTN and Global Link. It's already happened last year, yes. And this has promised that we already have a connection from satellites to Mako. It has already been tested. It shows that even people from rural areas can make calls or reach out to other persons from any part of the world that they are in. And I must say, another report from the Space in Africa also said that creates 19,000 jobs. This is not a projection. Maybe that is what my opponent is thinking. This already happened last year. Yes, it was a report from the Space in Africa website. This already happened. The African space technology has already created these jobs and they are already working. They're already on ground. So I think just with these few points, I'll just say thank you. The main thing we'll do is to integrate it and continuously invest in it. We already have it. It is just that we need more African countries to join in doing this. Africa, Morocco, Nigeria, and other African countries has already done this. We need collective efforts to boost this space. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Kachi. Angelo, if you have any other thing to, you know, address your own points or counter his current arguments, you can go ahead.
Okay, so his arguments were already addressed in my speech when I spoke of these monies or these funds or these returns, revenues gotten from the space exploration, the various space exploration programs not accruing to the people or the layman, the average African on the ground. We don't actually experience it. It doesn't change anything in our livelihood. So why not rather invest in programs that would help the people, such as farmers on ground? Yeah, let's take agriculture for example. Why not invest in machinery so that we can mechanize our farms instead of investing in space programs that would divert funds from these farmers or these people on the ground to invest in some vague future that is not actually promised. Thank you.
Angelo, is that all?
Yes, please.
Angelo. Okay. All right then. So now on to our judges, please. Observations, anything you have to say, comments that you need to mention. Judges, please. Miss Glory and Mr. Walter.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, though I am not Glory, but Mr. Emmanuel pleaded if I could stand in for her. So thank you to the organizers for organizing this debate, and then for the two participants that just ended up with their debate, I say well done to the both of you. You all did well. From your arguments, you all came with your own points, and facts to validate the sites you were assigned to for the debates. So I don't have much comments to say concerning the content, but then I congratulate both of you, and to Francis, I think, yes, the first, I kind of understand and sympathize with you with the Nigerian factor thing, because at some point we lost you, and then we both know it's due to the network hitches. But then I hope that this would not happen again, hopefully, by God's grace, next time. So thank you very much, and let's enjoy the remaining sessions. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Aya, for your time and thoughtful inputs. And all our contestants, to your efforts and insights today. Thank you very, very much. So now we're going to be moving on to the next team for their debates. So kindly keep tuned in.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, Mr. Walter has an input, I think. Mr. Walter, you have the floor.
Oh,
Thank
thank you so much. Thank you so much. No, I just want to greet everyone and thank the organizers of this such fruitful engagement that you have arranged, guys. It's really good to see young people like us in this space and engaging to such critical issues that are currently happening in the world and Africa, our continent. No, I'll also take the opportunity to congratulate the two speakers, the two participants from this session. You guys really did well. So on the first one, like you really presented on the first speaker, you really presented like several interesting issues, well-researched piece, and of course there were some weaknesses. Sometimes I was struggling to hear you, but your argument was really interesting. But of course there's a room for improvement. Like of many things that I've written here, you'll find them to say that like you were not clear enough in some ways, but you really presented some interesting stuff there. And also on the second speaker, your structure was exceptionally clear. It was easy to follow you. Your voice was loud. I think the network there is on your side is really nice, if I can put it like this. And like I've said, that your structure was easy to follow. And there was clarity. Your argument was really clear, and I will really applaud you on that one. Well done on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walter, for your take on that. And yes, concerning the verdict, just like yesterday, we told you guys the verdict will be ready and it will be sent to you via our comms platform. So we will be moving to the next team. I believe that's team 3. Team 3. Do we have team 3 here? Nixon and who's on team 3?
Yes, there is Nixon Otera.
Laura, is Laura here? Okay.
Yes, I am.
All right.
Am I audible?
So we are going to start. Who's for the position? Whoever is for the position should start.
It's Nixon. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
I'm audible. Oh, thank you so much. So shall I start?
Yes, start. Your time is counting now. You have 15 minutes for the main presentation and 7.5 for your rebuttal. Same goes to Laura.
Okay, thank you. From the dust fields of Kibera to the tech hubs of Kigali, the African dream is no longer deferred, but is being designed. Pardon my manners, ladies and gentlemen, honorable adjudicators, our precious timekeeper, and fellow debaters. My name is Nixon Otera from Zimbabwe. On the affirmative side of the motion, which says that can Africa eradicate poverty by 2030? It is critical and mostly imperative to start by defining the key terms of this motion. Firstly, what is poverty? I have got 3 distinct definitions of this critical phrase that which we all as the House should deliberate on. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, poverty is the state where one lacks a usual or socially acceptable amount of money or material possessions, which in clear terms signifies that poverty is said to be existing when people lack the means to satisfy their basic needs. Secondly, according to the Oxford Dictionary, poverty refers to the state of being extremely poor. And according to Britannica, poverty is a state of lacking the financial resources and the basic necessities for a minimum standard of living, such as food, clothing, and shelter. Going back to our motion, my honorable judges, precious timekeeper, and fellow debaters, can Africa eradicate poverty by 2030? I would like us to note that and rephrase this motion in this sense and say, can Africa eradicate the state of being extremely poor by 2030? This is courtesy of the definition by the Oxford Dictionary of what is poverty. In this sense, poverty is defined as the state of being extremely poor. So what one should sit back and put at the back of our mind is the aspect of saying, can Africa eradicate the state of being extremely poor by 2030? Before we delve in the plausible evidence of the progressive measures that our beloved continent has put in place to achieve this specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely goal of Africa eradicating the state of being extremely poor by 2030, which is more than a possibility, we have to ask ourselves these questions. Firstly, is Africa able to provide food for its people? Second, by 2030. Secondly, is Africa able to provide shelter for its people by 2030? And on another critical point, is Africa able to provide clothing for its people by 2030? Is Africa able to offer education for its people by 2030? And we can all safely and with conviction agree to this motion that Africa can achieve and Africa is able to achieve all these supplies to its people by 2030. It is critical and imperative to note that it is a clear and eloquent yes to Africa achieving this reality by 2030. I have divided my arguments into a four line of arguments, which are number one, the Africa's ever rising economic growth as a factor that is contributing to Africa achieving this vision 2030. And secondly, Africa's natural resources, its vast natural resources. And on my third line of argument, the aspect of improved governance institutions and fiscal reforms. And on my fourth aspect, we are to look on the point of the job creation and the demographic dividend of Africa. That being said and done, I am going to move on from my first line of argument, which is the Africa's ever rising economic growth. According to the African Development Bank report known as the African Economic Outlook of 2025, the African economy has been proven to be growing from a point of 3.3% in 2024 to around 3.9% in 2025. And this clearly signifies how Africa is developing and how Africa is very conscious of this vision 2030 of eradicating poverty by 2030. It is imperative and clear to note that in this short period of time, which is from 2024 to 2025, more than 21 countries exceeded a GDP growth of about 5%. And it is significant to note that a significant number are expected to reach at around 7% growth in terms of their gross domestic product. These countries, for example, include Rwanda, Senegal, Ethiopia, South Africa, amongst other world progressive nations of this mother continent, Africa. And also, we have to sit back and note and relax and note the fact that Africa, in its own economic development, each year, according to the African Development Bank, it has developed and they have concluded that Africa is sitting at a GDP of around 2.6 trillion, which in this sense, my honorable adjudicators, fellow debaters, it is clear and pertinent and very vividly to note that Africa is able to eradicate the state of being extremely poor by 2030. Moving on to our second point to note is the fact that Africa has got a significant natural, a vast significant in terms of its natural resources. It is important and it is imperative to note that Africa occupies a staggering 30%, that is in light of gold and mineral resources. And ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, and my fellow debaters, it is important to note that these vast untapped minerals, they possess a potential that Africa is able to alleviate this state of being in extremely poverty by 2030. It is clear to note that if for any of the developed countries in the Western, Eastern, or in the Northern Hemisphere, it is pertinent to note that the simple and the most important resource for a country or a society to develop is its ability to invest in its natural resources as well as in its untapped reserves in terms of gold and mineral reserves. It is important to note that Africa possesses an example of nation that have started and that are already in this motion of alleviating poverty or alleviating the state of being extremely poor with the vision in mind of going to 2030. This includes, number one, Botswana. Having utilized their vast and untapped resources in amongst them, including diamond, they have invested in their education, they've invested in their healthcare, they've invested in their human development. This is a clear and vivid projection that Africa possesses the potential, and Africa has already not only put it as a vision on paper, but already implementing the goal of achieving a sustainable as well as a developed continent as well as society in which everyone by the year 2030 will be able to live a life of spending at least per day $5 or $4.50 for an ordinary African man or an ordinary African woman. Secondly, we have to also focus our eyes and not in Africa that we have got, for example, the countries like Niger. Niger possessing its vast untapped mineral resources that includes uranium and coal as well as iron. They have proven to be significantly developing in terms of their economy. It is important and imperative to note that Africa is one of the greatest exporters of agricultural products, including of vast agricultural products that includes horticulture, being the highest exporter on the globe. That significantly entails that Africa possesses this potential of developing by 2030 and making sure that it alleviated this state of being extremely poor by 2030. Moving on to my third line of argument, it is important to note that Africa has been used to be known of the exaggerated narrative of being a war and corruption zone. Africa has already started, and Africa is already in the trajectory of making sure and defying the odds in this 21st century due to its shift in efficient and accountable governance. Ladies and gentlemen, my noble delegation and my esteemed judges, it is important to note that with this sense of proudness that Africa, for the very first time, it is in safe hands. Its leaders are leaders that really understand their mandate, and as well as in achieving this Vision 2030 of ensuring that every African, be it from Cape to Cairo, they all have this vision and they all have to attain this vision by 2030 of making sure that we alleviate extreme poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to note that, for example, if we are to look here in the SADC region, we look at Botswana. Botswana, having the highest GDP in Africa, currently under the leadership of His Excellency Duma Boko, have proven tremendously that it can be possible that African people and their leaders, they can live in harmony as well as plan together, as well as achieving this vision for 2030 of alleviating poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, one should sit back and relax and note of the fact that African leaders, they have got this mandate, and in this 21st century, they have proven it that they have these people at heart and ensuring that the resources that the people possesses are able to develop the people themselves. It is important to note that the foundation of our regional bodies, for example, the Southern African Development Community, it is a clear example that Africa, through these alliances, through these regional alliances, they can cooperate and be able to make this vision a success across the whole of Africa uniformly. It is important also to note that, or moving on to my fourth point of argument, it is the point that Africa possesses job creation as well as a potential in terms of its demographic dividend. According to the African Development Bank report of 2025, recently stated, it is important to note that it projects the aspect of saying that Africa possesses a staggering potential in terms of job creation as well as that means its demographic dividend. In terms of its Africa possessing a staggering of 1.4 billion in terms of its population. Africa possesses not short of labor. Africa is not short of people who are doing businesses. Africa is at one point now in the trajectory of having this conscious idea that by 2030 it is possible that we can alleviate and we can actually do away with this state of being extremely poor. So, ladies and gentlemen, my honorable adjudicators, precious timekeeper, and my fellow debaters, this house this house should be brought to this conclusion in a vivid, clear picture of saying that is Africa able to alleviate and do away with this state of being extremely poor? Ladies and gentlemen, my noble delegation, as well as our precious timekeeper, it is important to note that being poor is not a permanent, it's not a permanent state, but it is actually something that we can, as a nation, we can, as a continent, do away with. If we all have this idea of wanting, and if we all have this conscious decision of saying by 2030, every African country, every African person is able to live on a daily basis with at least a minimum of around 4.5 or $4.50 to around $5. It is possible. That has been already dealt in, and that has been already proven by this potential, as well as already in action principles and already in work frameworks that are already being implemented by our esteemed institutions that we have entrusted with the administration of this resource. So with this, my noble delegation, esteemed timekeeper, I rest my case.
Thank you very much, Nixon. Laura, you're up next. Please unmute your mic and make your case.
Thank you for this opportunity. Judges, my fellow debaters, and participators on board, and the timekeeper. I want to raise concerns on my fellow debaters' points about can Africa eradicate poverty by 2030? I go with the objection with several concerns from his arguments. First of all, from the definition of the topic, can Africa eradicate poverty by 2030? The key point here is eradicate. And what's the meaning of eradication? According to various meanings, and also from our point of understanding, eradication means ending something completely. It means putting an end to something. And from my point of concerns from Hotera, my fellow participant, he says that we can end completely poverty by the points that he has raised. Like, for example, he has put out the rising economy in Africa. Yes, we have a rising economy in Africa, but is it enough to completely eradicate poverty by 2030? To me, it's not. It's not a point whereby we are going to use it as a tool to eradicate poverty, because the economy of Africa is rising, yes, but not to the levels of eradicating poverty, simply because it is not realistic to just say that the economy is rising and poverty will be eradicated. We are talking about poverty in ways whereby in Africa, we have several sources pointing out the fact that in Africa, across the whole world, it holds many people living in sub-Saharan Africa, living in poverty. This is compared to the years of like 1990. It is only 14% of the world's poor who lived here. But today, we have a great number of population living in sub-Saharan Africa who are poor. And it's a home of 2/3 to the many people in Africa, made of the youth who are still living in poverty and are still struggling. And also, economy is built by people who are healthy, who are young. But when you come to Africa, we find that many young people do not have jobs. Hence, the economy is it's not at par to what it's required to steer the countries forward to help in eradication of poverty. Eradication of poverty is a step-by-step process whereby we cannot just wake up today and say, you know, the economy is rising, now poverty will go. No. To the second point, he says that natural resources. Of course, Africa is blessed with so many natural resources, but where does it go? Does it help the people? Is it going to help the people eradicate poverty by 2030? No. We've seen many, many instances whereby we have many countries in Africa are suffering from conflict simply because they possess the natural resources, but it's not helping them directly. This has been influenced by people in power who misuse their power to acquire these natural resources for their own good, leaving the people still agonizing in poverty. We have many minerals like the golds, the diamonds. People go there and mine it without protective clothing, without the necessary equipment, and at the end, they die. They die in the line of duty, looking for those minerals that they can use or they can sell so that they can better or just put something onto their table. Because you can't tell me that people are going to mine the natural resources and they are going to come out of poverty. No, no, no. It's not going to do that, because natural resources need to be controlled, and this control, now we have a problem. People in power just want it. Many countries are fighting. The locals are being made to fight, the citizens. But the more you're fighting, the more natural resources are being taken and exported to be used somewhere else. Then, in turn, they are being imported again. Your natural resources are taken away, then you're forced again to buy it. So how is poverty going to be eradicated when just the vicious circle is just there? It's like you are giving out.
Laura, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. Okay, I'm on my point of natural resources. So my argument is natural resources are not a solution to end extreme or eradicate poverty in Africa. Also, he has argued about improved governance. Improved governance has not been witnessed in Africa, simply because, like, a good example is the Gen Z protest in Kenya. The Gen Z protest in Kenya was steered by bad governance. That's why the people went to the streets. The youth went to the streets. They lost their lives because bad governance is a roadmap to leading people to poverty. So people refused. And we saw many African countries following suit. Nigeria, they followed suit because people are tired of bad governance, because bad governance has characteristics of corruptions, favorism, tribalism, embezzlement of public funds, leaving people in poverty. We have another point of job creation, whereby he says many people have been given jobs or have gotten jobs in Africa, which is going to end poverty. I'm in objection of that because we still have many people, young people especially, who are graduates, they are engineers, but they don't have jobs. Yes, they are educated, but there is no job. Hence, they'll still live in poverty if there is no any other way of finding something to do. There is no job. So poverty is still there. So it can't be a reason as to why Hotera is saying that Africa has many jobs created that is going to help solve the problem of eradicating poverty. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Laura. You were within time, and in fact, you even made rebuttal so sweet. That's good. Okay. Nixon, if you have any counter arguments, I think now is your time to let the House hear you. Nixon, are you there? Hello, Nixon, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Your competitor has made a point, and I am calling you to the stand to give your counter argument if you have any. Do you have any counter arguments against what Laura has, presented? Or we can just call this a close of today's session.
Yeah, I have them. I have them.
All right, let's hear you.
Honorable adjudicators, fellow debaters, and my precious timekeeper. It is important to note the fact that my fellow debater raised the issue of the definition of the word eradicating, in which he states that according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, eradicating means completely doing away with something to the extent of having it by the roots, which in its sense clearly supports my argument, which is to say, Africa can eradicate the state of being extremely poor by 2030. According to the Oxford Dictionary, the definition of poverty itself is defined as the state of being extremely poor. Taking it on from my fellow debater, it is important and imperative to note that Africa in itself is able to eradicate, which is completely doing away with the state of being extremely poor, in which I believe that my fellow debater is in clear and unequivocal agreement of this view to say that if we as Africa and these frameworks that are in place keep in mind this idea of saying it is appropriate and it is possible that we can achieve this dream by 2030, it is possible that we as Africa can completely do away with the state of being extremely poor. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable adjudicators, the point we are making here from the affirmative side is Africa can do away with the extent of saying my brother in Kigali is not able to access education, that is the minimum standards of a social community, that is to access education. My noble delegation, it is important to note that Africa is able to make sure that with its entrusted leadership in terms of governance, that the frameworks and the bodies that are in place, that includes the African Union, they have deliberately made Africa a safe place where the people, if the resources are not being utilized to ensure the access and the realization of this vision 2030, of completely doing away with the state of being extremely poor, the people can literally take it upon democratically to go and demand that, and to go and make sure that they remind these people that are in power to say, we have a vision that is attainable, that Africa, if we are to utilize our resources in a manner that we can all agree from Cape to Cairo, that our resources are being utilized, we can make this a reality. So the population, the 1.4 billion population that Africa possesses, is not idle, my honorable adjudicators. It is in participation. Mind you, the most important thing to say at this point is to say, Africa, coming from an ordinary African to those elites that are in power, we are all in rally of this vision of saying Africa is able to eradicate poverty by 2030. So, on the other issue of natural resources that my fellow debater has raised, she acknowledged to the point that the youth in Africa are working day in, day out in ensuring that they understand the mandate to say the minerals that are in those mountains, the minerals that are in those belts that are already under our rich soils. They cannot just unearth them themselves, but they need people that are conscious of the idea of saying we need to go and take our resources. Yes, the mother nature did its part of placing these resources in our precious continent, but it needs people that are conscious to say, let's go and mine and come back. Hence, it is important and very polite in the sense that to note that some of these vibrant African, they are sometimes, unfortunately, faced with disasters, and they are faced with untimely deaths. But that's not the main point that we should be worried about. The main point that we should celebrate is the actual point of saying Africa is in a point of realization that if we go and take our resources and we make them and sell them on the market, we can achieve this vision of eradicating or completely doing away with this state of being extremely poor. Allow me, my honorable judges, as well as my fellow debaters, to conclude this statement by borrowing the words of Kwame Nkrumah. He said, "We face neither east nor west, but we are going to face forward." Africa is in a position that if we face forward with this vision of achieving this state of completely doing away with extreme poverty by 2030, it is possible. With this, I rest my case.
Thank you very much, Nixon, for reinforcing your points. Is Laura in the house? Laura, if you have any counter argument to reinforce your point as well, I think this is your best time.
Yes, I am. Thank you for this time. And I would like to put some correction to Hotera's arguments. Like the way he's saying that Africa has come to the realization of Like if we use our natural resources for selling, exportation, we are going to end this problem of poverty. Let me say like this proverb that says charity begins at home. Charity begins at home to mean that in the case of poverty, it has to begin from a lower level, from the household level, from the individual level, before we reach a point whereby we are going to sell our natural resources. Not every part in Africa has the natural resources. Of course, we can have it, but not in each and every piece of land that people own. They have natural resources whereby they can go and mine and sell. No, it is in specific spots. And in these specific spots, we have the government coming in. They have already circled or they have already zeroed in. This is the area that we have diatomite. This is the area that we have fluorspar. This is the area that we have soda ash. So this is a protected area whereby not every citizen has that ability or is prohibited from accessing that point. So how can you just go to a natural resource, then you mine it, then you go and sell, then you're going to eradicate poverty? It's not going to work that way. For poverty, Hotera said it in the first place. The inability to fulfill your social needs and basic needs. Most of the time, the basic needs, food, shelter, clothing. So are you going to see that you're going to sell this natural resource so that this person can have food? No, that's not how business work or how economy grows. These natural resources, when they're being sold, they're going to do other things. They're not going to cater for these basic needs of these people in the grassroots level. Hence, eradicating poverty, it's not a one-day thing. Eradicating is phasing it out completely, making it extinct. It's not going to work that way. I'm still against the point of saying that Africa can eradicate poverty by 2030. Also, on your point of Kwame Nkrumah saying that we can face the East, West, but we have to face forward. Yes, we are going to face forward, but how are we going to face this forward? We are not going to have to climb on the top of the mountain and begin from there. Climbing the mountain, we are going to start from down, going up. Hence, you cannot say you're going to sell natural resources up there so that it can help eradicate poverty. It must start from the grassroots level. And with that, I lay my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. That was a beautiful presentation from you both. You guys really reinforced your points, and I really appreciate you guys for that. We'll call on George to give a take on this very session. Miss Anya, are you there? Yes, you have the floor.
Yes, yes. Good afternoon once again. Thank you for this opportunity. This is team 3, my team. So thank you, Emmanuel, and thank you to the organizers. Now to our amazing Laura and Nixon, congratulations. You guys both came with a good argument, but then I would like to make a comment on each of the presentations and then some little bit aspects that you could take note for future sakes. Now, I'll start with the first presenter, which is Nixon. I like the fact that you, in the course of your presentation, you came with very good examples. Yes, examples from some of the African countries. You brought in statistics, you informed us on, you also gave us the sources from which, those statistics or those information was gotten from. And you also did your research quite well, because some of those reports that you cited were quite recent, some as recent as 2024, if I'm not mistaken, and 2025. Yes, so I commend you on that. Thank you very much. And then there were lots of information that you presented that I myself, I wasn't even, aware. So thankful for this opportunity as it has helped, all of us to learn from. But then your time usage, sometimes you could digress a little bit, and then on 2 occasions the moderator had to prompt you about your time. So please take note on that. But then thank you very much for your evidence and for your analysis. Now to the second participant, which is Laura. Thank you so much. But then I feel, okay, Nixon made his point, right? I feel based on your own stand or point of view, I feel you could have made your case first. And then when it is time for, though it's not like, let me say, the standard, I would say, but I'm just trying to make the point. I feel you would have taken your standpoint, make your case, bring your evidence, give us your statistics, like give your stand, like fleshing it up. And then during the section for the counter argument and then for the rebuttal, then you counter what your co-debater, or rather your opponent, has said. So most of the time you were responding
I
mostly to
have it, but I was first counter-reacting according to the direction that I was given. So I was working on what he has said before I come to my point. So I wonder why, because I have my points, I thought maybe after that I'm going to be given time so that I can lay out my points so that he can also counter-react on my points that I have.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for notifying me about that. But then, so I feel that would have, given your own, argument a more solid point. And then there was a statement that you made. You talked about several countries in sub-Saharan Africa. You're talking about the poverty thing, and then I realized there was no source. So we don't know if this source is coming from the
I
AU.
wasn't given time to talk about
Laura, you are not
me
allowed to.
opposing this motion, because according to the
Laura,
direction you are saying
listen to me.
about
Listen to me.
counter-reacting the argument.
No, listen
So
to me. I'll mute you.
I was first counter-reacting before giving out my points.
Now, Laura, listen to me. And to every participant here, you are not allowed to cut short the panelists. Let them make their point, then you can now respond after they've made their point. Understood? So Laura won't tolerate this. Okay? I'm just giving you the grace of, that's it. And please, sorry, Miss Anya, you can continue with your.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel. So several countries in sub-Saharan Africa talking about the poverty indexes. I wish you could have given us one or two sources to back up your claim. Let it not just be like a blanket statement, without any credibility. Same also talking about most people in Africa, or most countries rather, are being plagued by conflict in Africa. We have so many instances in the past or in the present whereby countries, are being plagued with conflict. We have the DRC case, we have Central African Republic, South Sudan, the northeastern part of Nigeria. Like There are so many examples of, these countries. So, you just made a statement. So many countries are suffering from conflict, which of course we know that conflict is one of the key causative factors that leads people to, to being in a impoverished and poor state, kind of. So I feel if another opportunity hopefully avails itself, bringing such examples, bringing such statistics and all would help to lay more emphasis on your point that you're trying to present, on your counter argument, or to just build up your case. And then same thing again, young people do not have jobs. How many young people in Africa do not have jobs? Do we have a statistics? Okay, if you do not know that of Africa, since it's a very wide continent, why don't you use your country, Kenya, for instance, and then you give us an example? How many young people do we know, the age bracket or the category? So these are some of the things that I noted. And then also, to your credit, your counter argument and your rebuttal was very good. It was interesting. Congrats on that. And then the last counter argument that you made, you talked about, Nixon saying, okay, we have so many resources in Africa that can be channeled. In your counter argument, you gave, good examples of some of those resources. So I feel if you had, brought in this, this base, come with your statistics, with your sources, because we're not just making this debate is, I believe, for educative purposes. We're not just here just to, just for the fun of it. We're here to learn, and some of the takes that will be given in this debating session, will be very helpful to some persons in their academics or in their research, or some in their organization. So I feel we need to come with facts. We need to come with, credible sources as we debate, or as we, counter the arguments of our opponents. So that's the few points that I noted. And then, well done, you used your time more effectively. Thank you very much. And sorry, Mr. Emmanuel, I took a bit of time. Thank you.
No problem at all, ma'am. Thank you for your take on that and for putting them through as to how you go about the whole debate space thing. Sorry, I need to attend to some things. I will be back in no time. I'll be back in no time. All right, I'm back. Team 4. Is Team 4 available?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Team 4 is here.
So,
hello.
Sorry, I am not really conversant with teaming of his in. Who's in Team 4? Kofi,
Please.
No, and who? Who's your opponent? Or yes, who's your opponent?
Please, Chinwe.
I am the second person in Team 4, Chinwe Oyekachi KK. I'm on the call, sir. Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, good afternoon. So we'll be starting now, and I want
Okay. Please, can I start?
If you're four, you can start.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Please, I hope I can be heard. Hello?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, we can hear you, Kofi.
Sure. With standing chairperson and the guest house. Imagine this. You are at a family dinner with 54 cousins and they are gathered around one table. They all speak different languages, wear different clothes, have different incomes, and have even argued bitterly in the past. But one cousin just stands up and says, "We are family, let's build something together." At first, of course, it's funny, everyone will laugh it off. But slowly, they all realize that together they could build a business, protect each other, and make sure no cousin ever goes hungry. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what we mean by unity. And I mean African unity. It's not just a dream, it's a practical goal. With standing chairperson, impartial panel of judges, accurate timekeeper, co-debater, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kofi Mawedem Noel, speaking unequivocally in favor of the positive side of the motion, and I quote and unquote, "Is Africa unity achievable within the next decade?" The chairperson kindly permits me to elucidate some key terms in the motion to the simplest understanding of all and sundry. And of course, as and when needed, I shall tender exhibit or evidence to back my claim. Africa's unity, according to Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah in a speech at Addis Ababa conference in 1963, is a framework for Pan-Africanism that seeks to secure Africa's sovereignty and independence by uniting African nations under a single entity. Decade means 10 years. And achievable, however, per my own understanding, means capable of being obtained or gettable. I know my opponents will raise erroneous assertions by saying the AU Agenda 2063 is evidence that Africa can't achieve unity until 2063. But my opponent, be guided. Don't misinterpret the agenda's purpose. Agenda 2063 is a long-term visionary framework outlining Africa's development aspiration. It doesn't imply that unity is impossible before 2063. Instead, it provides a roadmap for incremental progress, encouraging us to work towards unity and development in a sustainable, step-by-step manner. The chair, Africa unity is achievable within the next decade, not only because it is possible, but because it is even happening right now as we speak. My opponent is from Nigeria. I am from Ghana. Notwithstanding, there are other representatives in this competition from different countries. Doesn't this platform in itself promote the very essence of the unity that our motion advocates for? The chair, I pose this question to my opponent, and it leads me to my first point. Point number one: enhancing Africa's unity through digital connectivity and cultural exchange is one of the strong solid points I would raise as my first point to affirm my stance that African unity is achievable within the next decade. Africa has the youngest Africa has the youngest population globally. According to statistics from AU, over 40,000 million youth over 40,000 million people are between 15 and 35 years old. This young generation is more connected through technology and social media, promoting a shared Pan-African identity. Initiatives like Hash Africa Unite movement, youth forums like this very forum, Pan-Africa Debate Competition, is a powerful tool for young individuals like my opponent Chinyenye and myself to connect, share, and learn from each other, hence fostering cross-border solidarity, crucial for unity in the coming decade. Pan-African startups are already creating tech platforms. Pan-African startups are already creating one tech ecosystem. Just go for 5 minutes on platforms like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, among others, and you will see Ghanaians dancing to Ama Piano, Nigerians watching Uganda skits, and a video, of course, of a Senegalese proving to Nigerians and Ghanaians that they can prepare the best jollof. As for this jollof debate, we'll continue later. To my second point, impartial panel of judges and their guest house, Africa Continental Free Trade Area aims to create a single unified African market. And this, of course, helps promote Africa's unity and is the solid point I'll raise as my second point to affirm my stance that Africa's unity is achievable within the next decade. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which was operationalized in 2021, is the world's largest free trade area by number of countries. It aims to create a single continental market for goods and services, boosting intra-African trade over 52% by 2022. That's according to the UN Economic Commission for Africa. This economic integration is a major step towards unity, fostering cooperation, and reducing dependency on external markets. It aims to connect 1.3 billion people in a single market worth over 3.4 trillion worth over 3.4 trillion. Already, Rwanda exports products to Ghana under Africa Continental Free Trade Area protocols, and Kenya car batteries are entering Nigerian markets more easily. My opponents will affirm this stance. Yes, trade corridors are forming. This is not talk. This is unity in motion. And if my opponent is still insisting that Africa unity is not achievable within the next 10 years, as for a strong Pan-Africanist like myself, I move on to my third point. Point number 3, the chair. The African Union growing political influence is one of the points I will state to buttress my claims that African unity is achievable within the next decade. Since its inception in 2022, the African Union (AU) has evolved into a robust political body representing all African nations. The AU's role in conflict resolution, peacekeeping missions such as in Somalia and Sudan, and diplomatic mediation shows an increasing willingness among African states to work collectively towards unity and peace. From COVID-19 vaccine distribution to digital policy frameworks, the AU has helped African nations speak with one voice, notwithstanding Ghana, Rwanda, Kenya, and other African countries allow visa on arrival for most Africans, and more countries are joining. The chair, unity is coded and signed into law. Fourthly, the chair and the House, shared challenges foster cooperation. Common threats such as terrorism, climate change, and health crisis like COVID-19 are termed as blessings in disguise because they have encouraged collective African response, diversity, and inclusivity. A classical example is the establishment of African Vaccine Acquisition Tax Team to secure COVID-19 vaccines during the COVID-19 era. This, the chair, demonstrated effective unity in addressing continental challenges. I know my opponent is ready to rebut my statement by saying that Africa faces challenges or obstacles, and this would serve as an impediment in achieving unity in the next 10 years. I'm not pretending that the road is smooth. Of course, yes, we face obstacles and challenges. But my dear Chinyenye, unity does not require perfection. It requires commitment. The question is, are we united now? The question is not, are we united now? But the question is Africa's unity achievable? The chair, to my fifth point, Africa diaspora engagement, which also helps to foster and bring us together as one and hence promotes unity. The Africa diaspora plays a significant role in advocating for continental unity. Diaspora investment, cultural exchange, and political lobbying enhance Africa's global presence and support unity efforts, as seen with initiatives like the African Union Diaspora Division. The Africa diaspora is not just a collection of people living outside the continent. It is a powerful socio-economic and political force that actively contributes to Africa's development and integration. The diaspora's involvement is bridging gaps between African nations, supporting intra-African cooperation, and enhancing Africa's global presence. This engagement gives practical momentum to the idea of African unity, the motion we are talking about today. And lastly, the chair, political will and visionary leadership. As the last point I will raise to affirm my stance that African unity is achievable within the next decade. The chair, leaders like Paul Kagame of Rwanda, Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, and Macky Sall of Senegal, and our very own Dr. Kwame Nkrumah advocate for Africa's unity and integration. This commitment to Pan-Africanism and collaboration through forums like African Union Summit shows political will, which is the linchpin for achieving unity within the next decade. Their leadership is aspiring new generation of Pan-African thinkers like myself. If this trend continues and expand, Africa is on a realistic path to achieving significant unity within the next decade. Not just a dream, but has a political and economic reality. With this point raised to affirm the motion, I know the House and even my opponents will rally behind me that Africa's unity is achievable within the next decade. Thank you. Hello?
Much, Kofi.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You did good. Chinaya, you have the floor.
A wise man once said that unity is not built on broken foundations. Good day, judges, moderator, my opponent, co-debaters. Today, I'm speaking in the negative on the motion, is African unity achievable within the next decade? The concept of African unity is a very noble one, however noble. It takes beyond nobility for a continent like Africa to achieve unity while still swimming in the waters of deep political fragmentation, economic disparity, and weak institutional frameworks. Now, I will go on to expound on those points and those areas that make it seemingly difficult for Africa to achieve unity within the next decade. And the first point, Africa's stability. We can see how that Africa's political stability for true continental unity to be achieved in the next 10 years. Dear judges, as of this year, 2025, over 25 African countries have experienced military coup or coup attempts. We're talking about the likes of Niger, Mali, Sudan, Burkina Faso. This is to mention but a few. All of these countries have experienced one attempt at military coup or even a takeover of the military completely. The African Union, that is said to be that body, also itself struggles to enforce its own democratic and peace charters. It is often said, and this has come to the play, that you cannot build unity among nations where there's instability internally. We have inconsistency with government systems. One day a country is practicing democracy, the next day it is a military regime. How do you know which is which? Because it could be monarchy today or the other tomorrow. We also see that our African leaders are often deep in self-interest rather than continental interest. This begs the question, when will our African leaders prioritize continental sovereignty over regime survival and national interest? Where every man is thinking of his own self, he can't think of African unity because it does not occur to him. He just wants to save himself. Now, I'm moving on to my next point, talking about economic disparity and lack of integration. Africa's vast economic inequality amongst African nations makes it unrealistic for African unity to be achievable within the next decade. In a continent that has at least 54 countries, only 5 out of these countries make up and account for over 50% of Africa's GDP, while we have countries like Burundi still remaining among the poorest globally. Also, we'll see that the African Continental Free Trade Area that was operational in 2021 aims to boost inter-African trade. However, by this year, 2025, it is still the trade percentage is still low and about 18% or less, as against other continents who practice this same system. We also see how that in Africa, we have differences in currencies, tariffs, infrastructure. All of these things continue to hinder economic integration. For a continent to be united, for a continent to even consider the thought of unity, economic unity is a major foundation for unity in any nation or any country or continent at large. Where there are no comparable development or levels of integrated trade system, achieving full African unity would only remain but a distant dream. Now I'll move on to my next point, talking about cultural linguistic diversity that has created barriers amongst African nations. Africa's immense cultural and linguistic diversity, while beautiful, it makes for forming a single united front exceedingly difficult. In African continent, we have over 1,500 languages and over 3,000 ethnic groups, with major divides between Francophone, Anglophone, to mention but a few. Historical colonial boundaries have grouped rival ethnicities and divided others. Unity requires a shared identity. For us to preach unity in Africa, we have to have a shared identity, a shared language, and a shared vision. These elements are currently lacking in Africa as a continent, and it is hard to unite a population that still identifies strongly with tribe, ethnicity, and has former colonial ties with shared African identity. Now, I'll move on to my next point, talking about weak institutional frameworks and implementation gaps. The institutions that are in Africa are often long on vision, but they are short on execution. More like, oh, ever achieving but never attaining. The African Union's Agenda 2063 is an ambitious long-term vision for unity and development. Yet, we can see that it has missed several of its short-term targets, including those on free movement and governance reform. The African Union Parliament lacks binding legislative power and depends financially on foreign donors. Even the ECOWAS struggles to enforce its decision consistently among the 15 member states. Now, let us think about this. If these regional blocs find it difficult to effect unity, how then can we expect full continental unity within 10 years? It is very unrealistic. I'm moving on to my next point, talking about security challenges and external influence. Africa's persistent security crisis and foreign interference undermines continental unity efforts. Whenever there's a coup or there's a war somewhere in Africa, we see how that we rely solely or majorly on international interference. Africa cannot even stand to defend its own. The ongoing conflicts in Sudan, Ethiopia, and all of these other countries is relying heavily on foreign military and aid to bring about peacekeeping. When Africa is still relying on these foreign agencies, how then can we achieve unity? These external factors and actors exploit divisions for influence and resources, reinforcing the fragmentation that we see in Africa. No continent, not even Africa, can achieve unity under widespread insecurity and dependence on foreign powers for stability. Unity requires sovereignty and self-sufficiency, both of which Africa, as of today, is still lacking, and I do not see this being achieved in the next 10 years. Also, I'm moving on to my next point, talking about historical precedents and the show of slow progress. We have seen past attempts at African unity and how they have largely failed or progressed very slowly. The Organization of African Unity that was earlier founded in 1963, which is now being replaced as the African Union, has set goals of unity, peace, prosperity. You can mention it, but all of these agendas, all of these goals largely are unfulfilled. The East African Federation, housing Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, has discussed political union for over 20 years. 20 years. But still, that political union has not materialized. If these sections, again, cannot achieve political unity or unity amongst themselves, then tell me, how can African unity be achieved in the next 10 years? These Pan-African ideals have always faced obstacles from competing with national interests and their differing political ideologies. These smaller blocs cannot reunite after a decade. Then looking at African unity within the next decade is, as I bring this to a close, it is important to state that however optimistic the projection for integration of unity in Africa is beyond for a decade, we need beyond a decade for African unity to be achieved. The European Union took over 40 years to evolve from the European Coal and Steel Community in 1951 to the full EU in 1993. And these countries share greater similarities. Now, coming to Africa's Union, our own timeline agenda of 2063 aims for unity amongst others, thereby acknowledging that meaningful integration takes decades. I am sure that the African Union took into consideration all of these areas before laying out that plan of Agenda 2063. Going on, not a decade is enough for African unity to be achieved. Not in the year 2035 will it be possible for us to see African unity. And this is because the AU itself has predicted nearly half a century for unity, expecting it within a decade, which is 10 years. I mean, 2035. It's overly ambitious and detached from reality. I will conclude this by lending my voice to the words of the wise man who said that unity is not built on broken foundations. And this is to say that the foundation of Africa's unity is broken. And I dare to say that it will be impossible to achieve African unity by the year 2035, not because I do not see a united Africa, but because I do not see an Africa being united and meets all of these challenges, as true unity requires generations of reform, integration, and trust building. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Chinenye, for your presentation. Now we'll be moving to the very phase of counter-argument. This is a point whereby you have to reinforce your points with respect to what your opponent have said or have laid out. Coffee, sorry if
Yes,
I didn't get
please.
the pronunciation.
Yes, please. That's it. That's it. I'm here. Please, can I go ahead?
You have the floor. You have the floor.
Okay. With standing chairperson and the House, my second comment here is to refute all the discombobulations my opponents have laid. My opponents from the beginning of the competition laid erroneous assertion, basing it on only challenges that African countries face. Chinenye, prove me a hypocrite if challenges, if there are challenges without solution. Of course, every challenge has a solution. So I don't think the challenges you listed would discourage us from uniting. My opponent also asserted that she doesn't see any Africa she doesn't see Africa unite now. But the chair, the essence of this competition is connecting us. We are all from different African countries. So of course, the motion is of course in progress and we are uniting from different countries, sharing opinion and learning from one another. That is the African unity you are talking about. The chair, my opponents also went the extra mile by raising points about leadership and governance challenges. But the House, while leadership and governance challenges exist, there are many examples of African countries making significant progress in democratic governance, transparency, and accountability. Countries like Ghana, Botswana, and Rwanda have demonstrated strong leadership and good governance practice. Furthermore, the African Union's Agenda 2063 emphasizes the importance of good governance, institutional strengthening, and citizen participation. My opponent also stated stated the points talking about political instability and conflict. Opponents, of course, you argue that Africa's political instability makes unity impossible. Yet we've seen the African Union actively resolving conflicts through peacekeeping and diplomacy. For example, the successful mediation of the 2018 South Sudan peace agreement and ongoing missions in Somalia. These efforts prove African nations have committed to resolving disputes collectively rather than allowing conflict to derail unity. My opponent also asserted a point talking about economic disparity. It is true that economic differences exist, but these disparities have never stopped successful unions like the European Union. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which I stated in my point, is a powerful tool designed to boost intra-Africa trade by over 50%, helping poorer economies grow and reduce disparities. Regional blocs like ECOWAS already prove diverse economies can cooperate effectively. The chair, my opponent also made a point talking about cultural and linguistic diversity. But the House, cultural diversity is a strength, not a barrier. Africa countries embrace multi-language and culture under one Pan-Africa vision. The African Union operates in 5 official languages and regional lingua like France and regional lingua like Swahili, which are uniting millions in East Africa. Diversity is the continent's richest, just as the European Union functions with over 20 official languages. My opponent also asserted a point talking about external interference. Africa is taking ownership of its destiny. Initiatives like Agenda 2063 and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which I stated, are African-led, designed by Africans for Africans. The continent is diversifying partnership with global powers such as China, India, among others. And this would help reduce dependency and external influence while strengthening internal unity. So my point here today is simple. Let's all come together and embrace the unity that we are all looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kofi. Chinenye, do you have Any rebuttals?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, judges. Thank you, my opponent, for your very beautiful presentation. Now, my opponent started with giving an example of 54 cousins having a family dinner and all of that. Yes, of course, it is beautiful to see how that people coming from diverse backgrounds, this platform, of course, is an opportunity for Africans around the nation to unite. But I put it to you that it doesn't work in that manner. I'll take my country, Nigeria, for example. We are one nation. We are claimed to be one nation, yet we have internal insecurities and internal divisions going on. Today we have the likes of Biafra, tomorrow is Boko Haram. There's one thing or the other. Unity does not come just because, oh, all these African countries want to, they actually have this desire to do business together or to promote one identity. No. We can see that internally, these issues are not being addressed. Because if Nigeria as a country cannot even stay in unity, how much more do we expect Africa as a continent to stay in unity or be united in the next decade? Now, my opponent also mentioned the Agenda 2063. Like I said, all of these agendas, all of these unions are just more of a situation of ever attaining, never reaching. The achievements of these unions and these institutional frameworks cannot easily be pointed to. The question here is the next decade, and not that the Agenda 2063 is not possible. Of course, it is possible, but perhaps achievable in the next 2 decades, the next 3 decades, but definitely not in the next decade. Also, the African Continental Free Trade Area, the countries that my opponent mentioned, are not even major contributors of the continent's GDP. Like I said, we only have 5 countries in Africa who currently make up more than half of the continent's GDP. If we still have a lot of other countries falling below the mark, then tell me, of what impact is this African Continental Free Trade Area in boosting the continent's economy? Also, my opponent mentioned that the African Union and other organizations tend to enhance global presence. Of course, enhancement of global presence is not in any way a reflection of unity. Unity has to be seen in our actions and not just in putting us out there and giving us a global reference where we still deal with a lot of issues internally. My opponent also mentioned the fact that, oh, I was laying emphasis on challenges. Of course, we know that it is small drops that make of water that make a mighty ocean. These challenges sum up to make African unity, the African unity that we seek. If we cannot address these challenges, then tell me, how can we see African unity? Like I said, it is not that Africa cannot be united, but if we cannot address these challenges within ourselves and start now, 10 years from today is unrealistic and only but a dream. My opponent also mentioned that, oh, that we can see how that Sudan has enjoyed peacekeeping treaties. The same Sudan is one of those countries that is suffering from military coup and cannot foster unity within its nation. Also, my opponent had mentioned how that the African Union and all of these other organizations liaise with external actors and agents to achieve peace. Africa seeking all of these external factors only goes to show that Africa is a baby still suckling her mother's breast because it cannot stand on its own. And if Africa cannot stand on its own, then I dare to say that African unity within the next decade is not achievable if we do not address all of these challenges that I've spotted out within ourselves. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Chinenye, for your presentation. Yes, we have come to the close of this session. Let's hear what our judges have to say. Mr. Walter, you have the floor. Can Mr. Walter hear me? Mr. Walter, if you can hear me, kindly unmute your mic and give us maybe some word of encouragement or Mr. Walter, are you there?
No, sorry. I thought I unmuted myself. No, sorry. Greetings once again.
All right, no problem.
Greetings once again. No. I will not say much, but just to give also a round of applause to the team that were busy now, to say that for one to really do well, they need to like really strict their speech outline into what they were saying as much as they can. For example, like they must be able to say what is needed, not to focus on what is known to us. But without wasting any time, I would like to give like the team that were on stage a round of applause to say that the depths of their speeches or their presentation like were based on like empirical evidence, like they were outstanding on that one, and the level of analytical that they made during this presentation like made it very persuasive to me. They were really persuasive in such a way that they were really explaining the mechanism of why and how behind the data analysis that they were really providing to us. And the policy things that we're mentioning, they were really on point. Of course, there were those time where like they really dropped on their points, and they were not providing like arguments, and that's for me is like they were lacking in strategy, like for to strategize and all those stuff, but uh, they really did well, and thank you so much for that. Thank you to the teams that were there.
Thank you very much, sir. The next team, team 5, I believe. Is team 5 present? Team 5, for and against. Are they present on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, I am present.
Okay, Comfort and Sheila, right?
Team 4. Oh, come on. I thought I was the one.
Come here, let me check my routine. Team 5. Okay, Fatima Lamihi, Ishaku, and Sheila Sonia Nyabuki. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
Okay. 4, you have the floor. That's Fatima. You are for the topic, should renewable energy be prioritized over traditional energy sources? You have the floor now. Your time
Okay.
starts now.
Okay, thank you. Just respected opinions and today I rise firmly to support the motion and prioritize our traditional resource. So first, we have to get to know the terms in the motion. Renewable energy, I refer to energy derived from national replenished sources such as solar, wind, hydropower, geothermal, and biomass. By traditional energy, I mean the fossil fuels, coal, oil, and then natural gases that have powered industrialized civilization for countries, but now threaten the very environment that sustains us. To begin with, the greenhouse effect caused by the excessive accumulation of carbon dioxide, methane, and other
Sorry,
gases
Fatima,
from human activities
Fatima, sorry to
has
cut you
become the
short. Wait, I want to confirm George is here. Mr. Mbaza, are you here? All right.
Yes,
Thank you. Fatima, you can continue now.
Okay. To begin with my argument, the greenhouse effect caused by the excessive accumulation of carbon dioxide, methane, and other gases from human activities has become the defining environmental crisis of our time. These gases trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, stabilizing global climate systems, melting glaciers, and intensifying extreme weather events. The event is overwhelming and its point conclusion. What must transition away from fossil fuels and renewable energy source must take priority. The single greatest contributor to the greenhouse effect is the burning of fossil fuel. According to the United Nations Environment Programme in 2024, fossil fuel combination is responsible for over 75% of global house gas emission and nearly 90% of all carbon dioxide emissions. These emissions are directly linked to rising global temperatures and serve environmental degradation. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change also has said that if global emissions are not cut by nearly half by 2030, the Earth will surpass the 1.5 Celsius warming threshold agreed upon under the Paris Climate Agreement. Surpassing this limit would accelerate sea level rise, biodiversity loss, and catastrophic climate events already being witnessed in the forms of flood, droughts, and then heat waves. Renewable energy provides a practical, scientifically proven solution. Solar winds and hydropower produce little to no greenhouse gas emissions, directly curbing the drivers of the greenhouse effect. By prioritizing renewable energies, we address the root cause of climate change rather than merely managing its consequences. Countries such as Iceland and Norway already generate 100% of their electricity from renewable energies, and their success stories shows that clean energy is not an abstract dream; it is a working model. Again, renewable energy extends beyond environmental protection. It is fundamentally about human life. The whole World Health Organization reports that air pollution, primarily from burning fossil fuels, causes approximately 6.7 million premature deaths every year. The same pollutant responsible for global warming, carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter also cause respiratory illness, stroke, and heart diseases. Transitioning to renewable energy immediately improves air quality. Cleaner air and water mean healthier populations, hospital admission, and lower healthcare costs. The WHO explicitly states that the energy transition offers one of the greatest opportunities to improve public health in the 21st century. Therefore, prioritizing renewable energy is not just a matter of protecting the environment, it is a moral obligation to protect humanity and our health to ensure that we preserve life itself. Again, contrary to the claims that some people make that renewable energies are economically burdensome, evidence proves the opposite. The International Renewable Energy Agency and the UNEP estimate that renewable energy could create over 40 million new jobs globally by 2030, resulting in a net increase of 90 million jobs after accounting for losses in fossil fuel industries. Furthermore, renewable energy enhances energy security. Countries depend on imported fossil fuels are vulnerable to global price shocks and geopolitical instability. The 2022 global energy crisis made this painfully clear. In contrast, solar and wind power are domestic domestically sourced, shielded from market volatility, and provide a stable, affordable, long-term energy base. Nations such as Germany, through the energy when policy, and Kenya in our own vicinity through geomethal development have demonstrated that renewable energy investments resilience. Also, my opponents may argue that renewable energy is unreliable because solar and wind depend on weather conditions. However, this challenge is being rapidly overcome. Advances in battery storage, smart grids, and energy diversification allow electricity systems to remain stable even with intermittent sources. Another argument concerning the high initial cost of infrastructure. While renewable energy projects require significant investment upfront, unions have confirmed that the long-term operational cost of renewable energy is now cheaper than fossil fuel in over two-thirds of the world. The real cost is an inaction. Continued inaction is in inaction. Continued fossil fuel reliance drains national budget through health costs, pollution controls, and climate-related disasters such as drought and flood. As for grid integration difficulties, the UNEP 2024 Renewable Energy Roadmap outlines practical solutions, including decentralized systems and modern grid upgrades already being implemented. So, ladies and gentlemen, the science is clear and the economics are persuasive. The moral cases is undeniable. Fossil fuels have powered human progress, yes, but they now imperil the very planet that sustained that progress. They are an immediate danger to our survival. Renewable energy offers us a path of sustainability, security, and justice. It keeps all the greenhouse gas emissions, protects public health, creates more jobs, and then ensure a stable future for us all. The United Nations, the World Health Organization, and the International Renewable Energy Agency have all made it clear that the world must triple renewable energy capacity by 2030 to avoid climate damages. Therefore, prioritizing renewable energy is not a choice, it is a necessity. It is the only rational and responsible way forward for our planet, our economies, and our future generations to be stable. I strongly affirm the motion that renewable energy should be prioritized instead of traditional energy. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Fatima. Uh, who's, who's the other participant? You have the floor. The other participant, you have the floor. Sheila. Sheila around? Yes. Sheila Sonia. You have okay. You have the floor now.
Yeah, I'm around.
Yeah.
Every nation dreams of a cleaner future, but no one can afford to dream in the dark. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever time zone you're listening to me from. My name is Sheila Sonia Nyaboke, and I will be on the negative side of the motion before us, which whether renewable energy should be prioritized over traditional energy resources. As the negative side, I believe the keyword prioritized implies that renewables should take precedence politically, financially, over existing sources like coal, gas, and oil. I firmly reject that approach. My position is simple. Renewable energy should be developed alongside, not prioritized over traditional energy resources, especially in regions like Africa, where access, reliability, and affordability remain critical. I will show that Blind prioritization harms economic growth, threatens energy stability, and widens inequality. For my first argument, I will look at access comes before development. Africa's greatest challenge is not carbon emission. As a matter of fact, according to the World Health Organization, Africa only contributes less than 3.7% of the carbon dioxide emissions. So, Africa, we are not looking at prioritizing energy safety. We are at an energy poverty level. And when we prioritize renewables, it will worsen the energy poverty and delay development. Most renewable systems require heavy initial investment and infrastructure that rural areas do not have. And traditional sources still provide over 70% of renewable energy because they are available, affordable, and scalable. For example, according to Kenya's geothermal success story, it's exactly why we shouldn't prioritize renewable blindly. Over 45% of Kenya's electricity now depends on geothermal sources. When drought or tectonic activity limits the steam pressure, seen in the All-Carrier project, its production drops sharply, forcing the country to revert to expensive thermal imports. So prioritizing renewables without balancing traditional sources like hydrocarbon or thermal power leaves us as vulnerable to such inflections. For my second argument, I will talk about renewable prioritization is economically unsustainable for developing nations in Africa, as it costs billions in installation and maintenance. Governments will have to borrow heavily from World Bank or other developed countries, which will lead to debt traps and inflation, increasing to the already huge amount of debts Africa as a whole it is indebted to the developed countries and the World Bank. So, and also transitioning too fast kills jobs in existing energy sectors like oil, coal, and transport. For example, according to the Extractive Industries and Transparency Initiative, countries like Mozambique and Nigeria are using natural gas projects to power homes and industries, which offer affordable and immediate solutions, unlike large-scale solar or wind farms that require heavy capital investments and grid upgrades. So, an energy transition that collapses your economy isn't progress, it is policy suicide. For my third argument, I will look at reliability and technological limits. Renewable energy cannot yet replace traditional sources in consistency and reliability. Sol and wind occur at regular intervals. For example, there are times during the day the sun will not be there, and we cannot depend on the wind to be there at night. So this one will hurt the African economies as it requires continuous baseload of power to drive manufacturing, mining, and industrialization. In addition, the most important sector in our economies, the health sector, we need a stable 24-hour energy to power our hospitals. So with the unreliability of the solar and the wind, we can't depend on it to power our hospitals. So that is why I emphasize that we cannot prioritize renewable over traditional energy resources. There's a research which was done by Bloomberg NFE. It is a company in the Europe, and it stated that batteries for long scale storage remain expensive and environmentally damaging. So we can't talk about the traditional energy sources, like how my opponent stated that it will lead to climate change, yet the batteries, which is a form of a renewable source, it also damages the environment, as some of the batteries are made from critical minerals like cobalt, lithium, and rare earth metals, and which these minerals are mined under poor environmental and labor conditions. I'll give you an example. South Africa Eskom. Eskom is a company which produces power in South Africa. It still highly depends on coal to sustain its grid. So when they introduced the just energy transition, it was a plan which wanted to focus on the renewable sources to power their industries and hospitals. This plan led to blackouts and rising costs, which made them to revert back to coal, which remains critical for their 24-hour reliability. And this was a study done by the recent Reuters on reliability and outages in South Africa. We can also look at Lake Turkana. Lake Turkana, Kenya's wind farms. This was a project which was initially started in Kenya, but it always underproduced at times because, as I stated earlier, you can't depend on wind 24 hours. There are time wind will be there and there are time it will not be there. As I conclude my argument, what I can say is what we need to look at is a balanced approach, which is more realistic and ethical. Investing in hybrid systems, it will build stability while cutting emissions. So when we talk about prioritizing renewables too early, it will lock us out of pragmatic progress, honestly. And remember, Africa, most of the countries in Africa are still third world countries. So we need to look for a balanced approach in not prioritizing.
All right, thank you, Sonia. Your time is up. Your time is up. So
Okay, thank you for the chance.
This is the point where you will have to reinforce your main presentation with rebuttals. So Fatima, you have the floor for that first. Then Sonia, you follow.
Good day once again, everybody. I'm here to reaffirm my position that renewable energy should be prioritized over traditional energy. And this is the reason why. The following reasons why are and my reasons are as follows. My opponents argue that solar and wind cannot be trusted because they depend on the weather. That is an outdated argument. The reality is that the world has already moved beyond that limitation. And according to the International Energy Agency, advances in energy storage technology, such as the grid-scale lithium-ion batteries, bomb hydro, and then thermal storage have dramatically improved reliability. Countries such as Denmark and Germany now generate over 50% of their electricity from renewable energies, and yet their grids remain stable and then efficient more than ever. Furthermore, the concept of intermittency it ignores the diversification. No country relies on single renewable source of energy. By combining solar, wind, hydro, and then geothermal energy, power generation becomes across seasons and time zone. My point also made mention that reliable or renewable energy will lead to loss of jobs, like I've already mentioned. If we rely on renewable source of energies, the jobs that will be lost will be we accounted for, but generating double of it that was already lost. So I reaffirm my position that renewable source of energy should be prioritized over traditional source of energy. Thank you.
Fatima, are you done presenting?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Shayla, do you have any counter arguments in that respect?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. So, my opponent Fatima, you looked at talking about how renewable energy, how traditional energy sources lead to climate change. However, I can tell you this. Africa's focus should be energy access before energy purity. It has been proven time and again. Traditional sources remain the most reliable and immediately deployable options to lift people out of darkness and poverty. Remember, we are facing third world problems here in Africa. So we can't focus on energy purity, yet we have a bigger problem of energy poverty. Many families are still struggling to even have a light for their children to read at night. So we can't talk about prioritizing energy, renewable energy, while many families are still struggling to get even the traditional energy sources that we have already. So yes, renewables are part of the solution, but to prioritize them over existing sources ignores our economic and social realities. Development must come first, and then sustainability will follow when we can afford it. But unfortunately, it is not now. In the end, this debate isn't about rejecting renewable energy. It's about recognizing that our future depends on balance and not bias. Developing nations like ours cannot afford to gamble with energy reliability. As Dr. Fatih Birol, the executive director of the International Energy Agency, once said, the future is not about choosing between old and new, but about using both wisely. And that's exactly what true progress looks like. Wisdom in choice and not haste in change. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Now we call on our panelist, Mr. Ambassador, to give his take concerning the presentations of the participants.
Come again, your network is breaking, sorry.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
No, I didn't get what you said. Come again.
Can you hear me?
Now you are clear, I can get you.
Mr. Ambassador, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. I was asking if you have any take on their presentation, whether there's anything you would like to fix, amend.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a powerful presentation from Fatima and Sonia. It was really powerful. So on just so that gives me clarity, and also through Mr. Emmanuel Oswano, I would request for the materials that they are using, so that I grade some of the slots that require the material, so that I analyze it as well. That's one thing I'll ask from the presenters through you. They should send it, then you forward it to me. Then that was great presentation from both presenters. I think that's all that I would request from Mr. Emma.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I will furnish you with that. Thank you for your time. And to all our participants and teams that have, done their sessions today, we really thank you for making our time, make this possible. So, unfortunately, we will not be able to go further from now. Tomorrow we'll continue from where we stop. I think Team 6 will have the floor tomorrow. Any communication in that regard will be delivered to you via the WhatsApp platform. So we are calling it a close now. Thank you everyone for joining in.
Hello,
Making this a
Mr.
success.
Emmanuel. Hello, can you hear
Mr.
me?
James, I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I raised my hand. Maybe you've not paid attention to it yet, but that's fine. So sorry to cut you
about
short. Yeah, but I just have something I want to pass across to all the participants or debaters. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody on this call, the judges. You've been all awesome right from day one yesterday, and to our dear, debaters. I really enjoyed every seconds that I've spent for being on this call since yesterday. Effective presentation, good, transitioning and all that. You guys should keep it up. It conflicts with my schedules over here, but the little time that I have, I always chip in to know what's going on. And thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel, for being able to coordinate this event with your team in a very well-organized way. However, there are a few things I've noticed that I want to bring to the attention of everybody participating in this event or competition. In as much as you've done thorough research, you want to debate each other and show that you've done thorough research. It also be very appropriate if you're being able to switch on your video cameras whenever you come or whenever you're called upon to present, because everybody at all can sit behind, the cameras and then speak. But what makes you genuine, what makes you outstanding is you being able to face the cameras. There are so many of us who are scared of the cameras, to be honest with you. And one of the intention for holding this debate competition is to take away those fears in people, so face that fears, be able to come on camera and debate, that alone may even earn you extra marks because you are doing something unique from what other people are doing. So that is just one thing I want you guys to take into consideration. If you're able, and you should be prepared to be able to come on camera, right? And it makes it more professional in that way, and it builds your confidence level. It puts you in a very higher position and all that. So that is one thing that I have noticed and I want to bring to the attention of everybody. And I hope that maybe going forward, some of you will be able to prepare towards that and work towards it. So in the absence of that, I don't have anything else to say except to say that I'm wishing you all the best. And we are waiting to see the next team, you do like as others have done or more. And we hope that at the end of the day, Africa is really, really going to be great. These great minds that we have, coming up. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. James. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for making the event a success. We'll see again tomorrow. Good night. Comfort. Okay. I thought you were raising your hand. All right. Good night, everyone.